Good morning, everybody. This is March 7th, and we are in Mark 13. And finding it a little bit difficult today on this one. Jesus is talking about things that are eschatological. That means that they are future things, at least for him and for his readers. Perhaps some or all of this is future for us as well. And actually, after I read this section for today, I spent a little bit of time just looking into this. I've been asked recently quite a few times by one particular person on trips to Israel and other things that about a third temple. Will there be a third temple that's built? And is it necessary for future things that are written in Scripture to take place for there to be a third temple? The only passage I could really find that seemed to perhaps require a future temple was in Second Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 2 or chapter 2 verse 4. I can't remember now, but it talks about the man of lawlessness standing in the temple. And it looks, depending on how you understand that and interpret that, it looks like there must be a third temple for him to stand in. Again, if you're understanding that to be future still, which it would seem like in Second Thessalonians, it would have been after 70 AD. So I don't know. It's hard for me to sort it all out. I would say that I wouldn't say that the bulk of the evidence from Scripture, not that there is a lot of evidence, but that there's really not much that would talk about a third temple that would necessitate that. Now, we certainly know that Ezekiel's temple was something that was future, that doesn't look like the first or the second temple. But how much of that is supposed to be literal and how much of that is actually in the new heavens and the new earth is another question too. I don't know that Ezekiel's temple will ever be built on this earth, maybe a new earth, maybe in the eternal state. I know that's a lot to think about, but the only reason that I bring that up here is because there's a phrase in here that says, "Let the reader understand," and it's in that very first verse of Mark 13:14. When you see the abomination that causes desolation standing where it does not belong, let the reader understand. But then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. I guess I would tend to think that this is something that already happened in the first century. There is record of a mass exodus of Christians from Jerusalem before 70 AD at the destruction of the temple, because they knew that this verse said that when they saw certain signs, they were supposed to leave. And apparently, many of them went to a city called Pella across the Jordan, in what is now modern day Jordan, in the mountains to that side. All that to say, you guys, sometimes it's hard to understand what is future still for us. And when I look and read these eschatological things, these things about the future, I am always reminded that in the first century, so many people made mistakes about who Jesus was because as they read prophecies from the Old Testament and their own understanding of those prophecies, plus some of the things that they imported into that from non-biblical sources or their own understandings, it caused them to miss who Jesus was. He didn't meet their expectations because their expectations weren't always only biblical expectations. And so I think that's partially the case of what we have that is still future for us, is that it's much easier to understand that looking back, or maybe even in those times, than it is when you're looking forward to something that hasn't happened yet. And so I want to remain humble with that. Don't want to make too many overly dogmatic predictions or statements about that. The thing that does trouble me though here is let the reader understand, implying that I should understand that probably better than I do. So I may have to wrestle with it some more. That's all I'm going to say on that today. So when we read things that are future eschatology from this, especially from the Gospels, I think we need to be careful, not spending too much time on it, but also coming to a sufficient understanding of it. All right, I'm over my time for today, so I'll be done.